What is up? What is up? It's Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern. You know what that means. It is the Etoft21sports Show. We are live and we are ready to rock and roll. We have a great show for you tonight. I'm going to be telling you a fantasy football player you need to look to target. My boy Shane, a.k.a. Bad Beats Pirate on Twitter, is going to come on, and we're going to be talking about the NFC South. But to kick off, as always, my boy Gino is going to be telling you what bet to lock in tomorrow at Saratoga.
Got a horse racing play for you. We'll be here with you every time Eric needs me with a horse racing play for you. I'll always try to give you plays for Wednesday, and for Wednesday we can have Saratoga join the party this week as they opened up last weekend. So we're looking at Wednesday, July the 20th for Saratoga. We're looking at Saratoga race number 9. I'm looking at the number 2, Dufresne, and I'm looking at her last 2 races in particular. I think they're pretty competitive. June the 11th was way out of it, closed from double-digit lengths, about 10 plus off to just miss third. It was a pretty good effort, and built off of that effort, showed a little bit more speed, but was in a race that was won by Making My Move, who won that race gate to wire. They tried to gear Dufresne down in the second spot and get her to relax, but she just wasn't able to come on again and come after Dufresne. So I'm gonna use Dufresne, who I believe will be in the 6-8 to 1 range. If she's anything around that, that's a fair price. The favorite in this race will likely be She's a Mia. Dufresne was only a length behind She's a Mia, so if there's a gap in price between the two of them that's this big, I think you have to go to Dufresne, the number 2, 8 to 1 on the morning line. My value line was 5. I would need at least 5 to 1 to make a win wager on her. I think that's her value, 5 to 1 or above. They'll go a mile and a 16th on the inner turf course. Saratoga race 9, Wednesday, July the 20th. We'll be back here with you each and every week, helping out, dishing out horse racing plays for Eric.
Saratoga is live, and oh my God, I absolutely love betting that track. So make sure you lock that in. You can get some huge prices betting the spot. Now we're going to shift our attention over to a fantasy football player you're going to look to target. And for those fantasy football players, this one is going to hurt. We're talking Evan Ingram. Doug Peterson was named the new coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He said that he would be calling plays. With that being said, I decided to do a deep dive into the tight end position production with Peterson as the play caller. Every year, the lead tight end has had over 100 targets except for one, and that was due to injuries. If you take that season away, the lead tight end averaged 122 targets, 86 receptions, 930 yards, 7 touchdowns. Wow, per season. I'm not saying Ingram's going to be the highest scoring tight end this year, but he could very well be this season's Dalton Schultz. Schultz had an ADP of 278 per Fantasy Pros and finishes the third highest scoring tight end. Also, one very important thing to remember, only 2 tight ends averaged over 10 fantasy points per game last season. Every year that Peterson has been calling plays, the lead tight end has averaged over 10 fantasy points per game. That is why Evan Ingram is in this week's fantasy football spotlight as the tight end you need to target in your fantasy football drafts. And I can already tell my boy John is not a fan of Evan Ingram. So as always, Gino is looking fresh. Bobby is right on with that. But look, you guys are here. NFL's right around the corner. We need to dive into the NFC South, and who better to come on than Shane, Pirate_beats42 on Twitter. Shane, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here and excited to talk some NFL and specifically NFC South. Sure, you can see my Panthers flag behind me. I'm a big Panthers fan. So, ready to talk some Panthers and their competition.
Now, we need to talk about being a Panthers fan because I'm a Lions fan. So I'm sure, we share a lot of pain. And speaking of pain, your nickname, Bad Beats Pirate, I need to ask you, what is your worst beat in terms of betting?
Oh, man, where to even start? I try to, obviously the name comes from the bad beats I've experienced in the past. It seems to happen to me pretty often. I've had some pretty brutal beats, especially in the past year. Some that come fresh to mind. One that really burned was back last season college football, Texas versus Oklahoma. I had Texas, I want to say I think it was plus 3.5 on the spread, and they were, I think they were winning, or they were winning, or they were winning basically by like a 1 or 2, I think, in the last play, and they basically just had to. I think Oklahoma was on the 40, 50-yard line, something like that. It was the last play basically. They just had to keep Oklahoma out of the end zone on that last play, and it was a cover for sure. Or it was tied, I think. I think it was tied. So basically, just had to keep Texas out of the end, or Oklahoma out of the end zone. And of course, Oklahoma gets a crazy play, scores a touchdown on the last play of the game, ended up winning by 6 or 7. So my bet lost. That was a pretty bad one. And then we were talking a lot football coming during USFL season. And I had the Michigan Panthers in that game where they missed that 17, 18-yard chip shot field goal on the last play of the game. To lose that one. I had them on the money line at plus money, I think. Or it was like plus 100 or maybe minus 110, but had them on the money line. They end up losing on a missed 18-yard field goal. That one really burnt. Hard to go to sleep that night.
Yeah, when you lose a bet on a missed field goal is absolutely brutal. But you know what? We're here to make some money. We're here to make some money. We got futures to dive in, and let's dive in. The first one we're going to talk about the Carolina Panthers. 5-12 last year. They're 100-1 to win the Super Bowl, 50-1 to win the NFC, 9.5-1 to win the South, over under 6.5. You know, they made some improvements on the offensive line. They're bringing in Baker. They did lose some people on the defensive side of the ball. They made some coaches changes, hiring Ben McAdoo, who I'm not a big fan of, and bringing in James Capel, who's going to be the new offensive line coach, which means more zone blocking. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell us, your thoughts on the Panthers?
Yeah, sure. I'm definitely excited for this coming up season. I don't think, we're going to be winning the Super Bowl or anything, but I do think there's a lot, to be excited for, especially with how the past 2 seasons have kind of played out. I know some people are a little skeptical about bringing Baker in. I, for one, I don't think he's going to, like I said, take us to Super Bowl or anything, but I do think that he's going to bring some energy and excitement, and he's definitely better than the other option, Sam Darnold. I was never a big Sam Darnold fan from the get-go, and he didn't really pan out too well. I think Matt Corral, it gives him some time to kind of grow and develop in the background for a couple years and give him a chance to develop, hopefully to get to where he needs to be a starter for the team eventually. But I think, Baker got a raw end of the deal kind of in Cleveland. I mean, he took that team to the playoffs first time in a long time. I know he had a lot of pieces around him, but, he was the quarterback. He was the leader of that team for the most part and led him to the playoffs. So I think he's going to bring that fire to Carolina. Matt Rule, I'm still very iffy on him. This is where in like his career, kind of that second, third year, this is where he turns the teams around. So I'm trying to give him that time. I think this year is, he's on the hot seat. I think he's going to have to show some improvement this year. I think we got a good defense, young defense, so a lot to be excited for there. But yeah, overall, I'm excited. I don't think, we're going to win the Super Bowl or anything, like I said, but I do think that we could get over this win total of 6.5. I think there's a chance if things fall the right place. So yeah, excited, but, not trying not to get too ahead of myself, I guess.
So here are my thoughts about the Panthers. The first thing we need to talk about is, I'm a big thing on the Pythagorean win total. Their Pythagorean win total, it was 6.43 last year. They only won 5 games. That means they underachieved. So historically speaking, teams that have underachieved from their Pythagorean win total, the season before, it tends to progress back to the norm. So that's a positive for you boys. That's
I'll take any positive I can get.
that's a big positive for you boys. Now, last year they had one of the worst offensive line units in the NFL. They made some changes. They brought in Bradley Bozeman, the center from the Ravens. They added Austin Corbett, the right guard from the Rams. Drafted the kid from NC State. So this is going to be an improved unit. And also, they're going to be switching to a zone scheme. For those who don't know, last time Carolina ran a zone scheme, CMC, Christian McCaffrey, he averaged over 5 yards per carry, which is absolutely insane. He's more of a zone runner, which is good. But as a fan, I need to ask you this. 26 years old, coming off back-to-back injuries, I feel the body is breaking down. As a fan, how do you feel about CMC?
I agree with you. I'm very worried about his health, and the past 2 seasons he's had pretty serious injuries. Running backs, they break down. Their bodies just tend to break down a lot quicker, and he's a smaller running back, so that's not that's even less going in his favor. Obviously his health is going to be a huge factor for the Panthers. If they can keep him healthy, I think they'll have a more successful season, and I think that over 6.5 wins gets much more doable if he stays healthy. If he gets hurt early in the season, goes out, that under a win total is probably gonna be what happens to him. But I'm a little skeptical about his health. I'm hoping for the best, but with running backs, when they start getting injured, more often than not, they stay injured for the most of the time.
Now, my boy, the Wolf. If you're not following the Wolf on Twitter, follow the Wolf on Twitter. Hell of a horse handicapper. And he asked, Christian McCaffrey, games played, 6.5, over under.
If my heart's telling me over, but logically and just from the past couple of years, if I was really putting money on that, I would have to take the under more than likely. I think the value would be on the under. But obviously, I hope he gets over that 6.5. And hopefully this new offensive line, the new offensive line will help him out and give him some big holes and, keep him from taking so many big hits in the backfield. Same with Baker, but it's just a lot of, new parts on the offensive line. We're going to have to see how they gel, new offensive line coach. But hoping for the best, obviously.
I am a hell no. I speak with my pocketbook, and I'm a no. If I had that line, I'd bet the no. And my boy Chase always breaking it down. My mind is telling me no.
I agree.
But my body is telling me
yeah.
So you always count on my boy Chase. Make sure you give Chase a follow on Twitter. Funny ass dude.
For sure.
So I would lean under there. Now Baker's coming in. We really don't know what's going to happen with Baker and the offense. Robbie Anderson made some comments about him. Baker is throwing the ball. Does that affect Anderson's targets and his role in the offense? But I did find this, and this is very promising for fantasy football owners. DJ Moore has the second most targets the last 3 seasons combined, 12th most fantasy points, second most yards, and he's had absolutely no quarterback play. Baker's definitely going to be an uptick. Do you see DJ Moore cementing himself as the number 1 wide receiver?
Yes, for sure. And that's actually something I wrote down about the Panthers. Was a huge thing they did this offseason was re-sign DJ Moore. Huge to get him back. He's been, I think, really under the radar as far as the general fan doesn't really know like the stats he's putting up, but he is just putting up really amazing numbers each year. And if you look at kind of who's been throwing him the ball, it's even more impressive that he's able to put up the numbers he's been putting up the past couple of years. So I'm very excited to see, how him and Baker play together. I think he'll get, more opportunities to get, more plays downfield and more passes to him. Hopefully, good passes to him. And just more opportunities to get the ball in his hand, which should be good for the Panthers. I think anytime you can get the ball in him and Christian McCaffrey's hands, that's always good.
Now, the Panthers, phenomenal defense, gave up the second fewest yards, the 4th fewest passing yards. D-line is absolutely legit. Middle of the field, front 7 is great. To me, it all comes down to can the secondary can cover. Horn's coming back from a season-ending injury. Will C.J. Henderson finally be able to take a step and be the opposite side starting corner? Because if you guys are rolling out Deontay Jackson, he gave up the 11th worst catch radius last year, which is awful. He is a bottom 15 DB in the league. You guys can't win games if you're rolling him out. So that's my main thing. If the secondary can cover, I think you guys can go over this win total. I had 2 spots circled. Obviously, week 1, they play Cleveland, Baker revenge game. I'm going to be looking to take the Panthers there. There's no line posted because we really don't know what's going on with Deshaun Watson. Watson there, Watson or not there.
Yeah.
I am hammering the Panthers in that game. And then if they win that game, I am fading the heck out of them next week going up to New York.
Yeah, I definitely I agree with you. I do think that Baker's going to come out firing week 1, and I think the Panthers come out with a little extra fire. And I do think, I don't know if we'll see Deshaun Watson. I doubt we will. But even if he does play, I still think the Panthers have a good shot, especially at home in week 1 against them. And I think you'll get him as an underdog. So I'll probably definitely betting on week 1 plus money, I would hope. I hope you're wrong about the second week against the Giants, but I could definitely see that happening, especially if they come out strong and win week 1 against the Browns. Definitely comes to a letdown spot week 2 against the Giants. A couple other games, I think big spots for them later in the season. If they're going to hit this win total when they play at the Ravens, that's going to be a tough game. But, I think they could, if, a good game, they could come out with a win there. Then they go to play the Broncos at home the next week. I think that's another very important game for them. And then 2 weeks after that, they have the Steelers at home. The Steelers traditionally spank the Panthers every time they play. Usually it's in the preseason, but still. But I think there's going to be 3 games late in the season that'll be pretty important for this team. I don't think they'll be in playoff contention, but I do think it'll be important for their win total. I guess there's a chance they could be in playoff contention at that point, and if they are, even more important to those games. But I do think those would be 3 important games for their win total to get over that 6.5.
My boy Reed hit on the head. I mean, even with Watson, it would be the most Brown things ever.
Yeah, that's a great storyline for the NFL too. Couldn't have worked out better for him to get the Panthers and the Browns week 1 after that trade.
Chase, it's going to be DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore is going to be that. It could be Terrence Marshall, big wide receiver. Always had big games at LSU. Definitely like that kid a lot too.
Yeah, he's got potential.
So I didn't take any Panthers futures. I take it from the convo. You're kind of leaning toward the over.
Yeah, I think if I do take a win total on them, I'm going to go on the over more than likely. I probably am going to stay off of it, but right now I'd be leaning towards the over, but I don't see really any other future I would feel too good about the Panthers on right now.
The next team we're going to switch to is we're going to go to the Atlanta Falcons. 250 to 1 to win the Super Bowl, 100 to 1 to win the NFC, 25 to 1 to win the South, over under a 4.5. They brought in Marcus Mariota. They added Casey Hayward. They lost Matt Ryan, Hayden Hurst, Deontay Fowler. Interesting team here. Interesting team here. What do you think of the Falcons?
I think they're there in for a rough season. Personally, I think it's going to be it's a rebuilding year for them. Obviously, they've lost their quarterback that they've had for quite a while now. He's gone on to a different team. They're kind of getting a new quarterback. A lot of new people coming in, so kind of starting over fresh in the wide receiver core with Ridley out for this season and Gage gone. Lost Julio last year, so their offense is going to be. I think they're going to have a rough year offensively. I think their defense is getting a little better, but I do think it's going to be a rough year for them, and I think I'm going to be looking at the under 4.5 wins for them this season.
I was looking at them, and this absolutely blew my mind. They had not 1 but 2 players graded in the top 10 per PFF at their position on the offensive line. Matt Hennessy, 9th PFF center. Chris Lindstrom, 6th PFF guard. I think this unit is a good run blocking unit, which is going to be good because last year they had a gadget player, Cordell Patterson, back there. Now you have Damian Williams, and they have the rookie Allegreg, who I think is going to be good plug-and-play DFS spots. Also, I think having a mobile quarterback is going to hide some of the issues they have in pass blocking. And with actually having running backs, you're going to get back to the Arthur Smith play-action pass game. When Smith was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee, first year they were number 1 in the NFL in play-action passing. Second year, they were 3rd in the NFL in play-action passing. Last year, when Atlanta had one of the worst running games in the league, they were still managed to be 8th in play-action passing. So if they have any semblance of a running game, I think this is going to open it up for what Arthur Smith likes to do. In terms of like the wide receivers, They really lean heavily on the tight end curl. I think Kyle Pitts, like everyone else in America, is going to have an absolute banger of a season. Defensively, they only blitzed 25% of the time last year. That is one of the lowest in defensive coordinator Dean Peens' career. Looking at the players they drafted, I think that's going to change this year. They're going to look to be a little bit more deep blitzing, what Pease likes to do. And generally speaking, corners peak. They reach like their peak in their third year in the league. This will be AJ Terrell's third year in the league. He had the 11th lowest catch rate last year, which absolutely blew my mind. If he can improve on that and become a legit shutdown corner, and it forces the quarterback to only look at one side of the field, they have one of the best run stoppers nobody's heard of in Grady Jarrett. You know what? I think Atlanta is building something, but I think they're a year away.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I think re-signing Corda or Patterson, like you said, I think that's huge for him. He was really a jack of all trades for him last year, and I think he was kind of like floating around the league for a while, trying to find a team. I don't think anyone really knew how to use him, and I think Atlanta kind of figured out how to use him last year. And he had him on my fantasy team last year, and he had a great year for me. And I think he kind of same for Atlanta. He had a great year for Atlanta, did a lot for him offensively. And I think having him back this year will be really good for him. But yeah, definitely, I think their defense, like I said, they're building something. Similar to how you said, I think they're a year or two away. I think it's going to be a rebuilding year for them this year. But they do have just some things to like if you're a Falcons fan or be excited about. I just don't know if it's going to be a very exciting year for them this year.
Now, what are your thoughts on London?
Gosh, I'm not really. I honestly didn't. I don't watch a ton of West Coast football, so I didn't get to watch a ton of London in college. So I don't have a great perspective on him. I think he's pretty good. It'll be interesting to see how he plays out for the Falcons. But you might have a little more information on him than I do.
My thought is this. This is my thought. I think Tate, the guy that used to play for the Bengals last season, is the guy you want to kind of target, just because most teams are going to shift their coverage toward London and Pitts. That's going to open stuff up for Tate. And with the play action pass, he's a big physical wide receiver. He can high point a ball. I think Tate's kind of the guy you want to target here. Like I said, though, I think this is the team that next year we need to look to be invested in the future market with them. Now we're getting to the team that we both kind of like. Mm-hmm. And I know as a Panther fan, this is probably going to hurt you.
Very much.
New Orleans Saints, 40-1 to win the Super Bowl, 17-1 to win the NFC, 4-1 to win the South. Over under is 8.5. They bring in Landry, they bring in the Honey Badger. They did lose Armstead and Marcus Williams. What is your thought on the New Orleans Saints?
Well, like you said, being a big Panthers fan, I've never been, enjoyed watching the Saints. Never was a big Drew Brees fan. In fact, I can honestly say I pretty much hate the Saints. But I do. There's a lot to like about them this year from a betting perspective. I think there's a lot of value on a lot of the futures that are out for them right now. I think the win total, I think they can very easily get over the 8.5. I think they could really get to double-digit wins this season if things go right. My main concern is just, obviously the new coach, and also, do you really trust Jameis Winston to lead this team, to greatness? But I do think that Jameis Winston, we're going to see a focused and hopefully more mature Jameis than we saw back in Tampa. I think he's got his head in a good spot right now. I think he's got good players around him and a good, just solid program or solid organization, kind of leading them to do the right things and just, be a good leader for the organization. I think there's a lot to like with the Saints this year.
Ton to like with the Saints. Their offensive line struggled last season compared to what's been in the last years, but that's because Parrott and Armstead were both hurt. You have to factor that in. Armstead is gone. They drafted the kid, Trevor Penning, to be their left tackle out at NIU. if he can pick up the pro game, which I think he can, because I was insanely high on him coming out, and Parrott can stay healthy, I think this is going to be as good of as a unit was a couple years ago. Wide receiver room, they're getting Michael Thomas back. They drafted Chris Olave, who in my eyes was the best route runner in the whole draft class last year, and they added Jarvis Landry. The thing is, Olave is going to get the best matchup. He is going to be a fantasy football darling. Now, here's the thing that happened, and this is for the biggest thing that the Saints did, the absolute biggest thing they did is they kept Peter Carmichael. And I know everyone's saying, yo, Eric, who is Peter Carmichael? He was their offensive coordinator, and I really feel like he was the man that was kind of driving the whole Saints offense. Because if we just take a look, back in 2011, Sean Payton got rolled up on the sidelines. The next game, the Saints had 62 points, 557 yards, which led to Carmichael taking over the offensive play calling the rest of the season. And in that season, the Saints had the most points in franchise history, the fourth most yards in franchise history. The next season, Payton was suspended because of Bountygate, had third in points and second in yards in the NFL. 2016, called plays, led the NFL in yards, second in points. I think this Carmichael guy, basically, I'll use the analogy, he's Peyton's Belichick. So how Parcells was getting all the credit when it was Belichick doing everything, I think it was Carmichael doing absolutely everything, and Peyton was getting all the credit. Carmichael's going to come here. He's going to be running this offense. I don't think the offense is going to miss the beat. I know that Kamara is going to be suspended for getting arrested at the Pro Bowl game last year. But I really, with the weapons they have, the backup running backs they have, I really don't think that they're going to miss a beat. I absolutely love the Saints. I locked them in at plus 130 to make the playoffs. And I think I'm waiting. I want to find a 5-1 to win the South. I'm waiting on that, but I definitely locked them in at plus 130.
Yeah, I definitely think that you get a lot of value betting them to win the South. I think right now they were plus. I think I've seen them up to like plus 400 some places, but even down to like plus 350 on some markets. I think my one question I had about them was how much time is Alvin Kamara going to miss? But as you said, even if he does miss 2 or 3 or even up to like 4 games, I can't imagine he missed all that. But even if he does, they have so many weapons that I think they can, even they can mask him not being there for a couple games.
I think it's an absolutely loaded offense.
Yeah, they just have so many weapons that even if he misses a game, or even if one of their receivers gets hurt for a couple games, they still have so many people that they'll put someone else in, they'll be fine. I think Jameis Winston's health is going to be very important for them. I know they have Andy Dalton now, I think, as their backup. But I think Jameis Winston's a much better quarterback than Andy Dalton. And Mike Thomas being back, that's huge for him. I think him and Jameis getting to play together, I think they'll be fine together, and I think them having Mike Thomas back, it's going to be
something Carmichael was doing a lot. He was having Thomas and Kamara line up on the same side. Payton didn't like that. I think lining those two up on the same side is going to be freaking unbelievable for the offense. You look at the defense, they have Cameron Jordan and Marcus Davenport. You have 2 guys that can get to the quarterback without pass rushing. And in the back 4, you add Honey Badger, you drafted the kid Taylor, and you added Bradley Roby. I think this back 4 is going to be better than last year. If their linebackers can just be somewhat, I'm spacing on the word I'm looking for, but if they can just be average, this is going to be an elite defense. I love the Saints here, man. The more and more I get it, I like the Saints a lot more. And the biggest thing about the Saints, with no more Sean Payton, there's no more. I think there's going to be less gadget plays, which is huge, and less Taysom Hill, which is absolutely
yes. Yeah, I agree. And big thing about the Saints, I'm definitely going to be looking for them when they play the Bucs this year. The Saints have won 6 straight regular season games against the Bucs. they seem to just kind of have the Bucs numbered in the regular season past couple seasons, and I would look for them to at least take one of those 2 games against the Bucs this year. So I'll probably bet them on the money line in both those games. Imagine I'd get them at underdogs in both those games too.
Now, I'm going to tell you this. This is a betting trend, and Miss El Paso is not going to like this. My boy Chase isn't going to like this. But I'm taking the Falcons week 1. Now, here's why. Home divisional dogs against the spread week 1 are 71% ATS and 65% straight up. I love the Saints for the year, but I am definitely going to be taking the Falcons on week 1 just because of that betting trend. So I am sorry to my boy Chase, sorry to Misty, but those are 2 trends I am going to be looking to take advantage of betting week 1. Now we're going to get to the last team in NFC South. We're going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 7.5 to 1 to win the Super Bowl, to win the NFC. About 3 to 1. They are minus 290 to win the South. That means you have to bet $290 to win 100. Not really, the best ROI. They brought in Akeem Hicks, they brought in Shaq Mason, added Logan Ryan, but they lost Ndamukong Suh, Gronk, OJ Howard. They lost 2 starting offensive linemen in the interior. What are your thoughts on the Buccaneers?
I think, with Tom Brady as our quarterback, obviously they're going to have a lot of the public kind of backing them and supporting them. But yeah, they lost some pretty big names. Like you said, they lost Sue. They lost some pretty important offensive linemen. They lost Gronk. They lost OJ Howard. So they're down to just pretty much Cameron Bate now as their only kind of tight end that we've ever heard of before. So they've lost a lot of key players. They lost, Richard Sherman too. So older guys, but, very big locker room guys, important roles in their, playoff and Super Bowl runs the past couple of years. I think their win total was, 11 and a half.
Yeah.
And I think that the public's going to be hitting the over on that a lot. I think me and you talked about this earlier. I think we might kind of go against the grain here. And I think we're kind of thinking they might under exceed expectations a little bit this year.
A lot of questions on offensive line going this season. They lost Alex Kappa and Mulbert. Really a big blow to the interior offensive line. Will a 41-year-old immobile Tom Brady be able to make up for that weakness? Brady threw 719 times last season. Missing Godwin, missing Gronk's going to hurt. Plus, they don't have Arians. Arians like to throw the ball a lot more. They were 31st in rushing attempts last year. Both new coach Todd Bowles and offensive coordinator Brian Leftwich said they want to run the ball more. But if you're missing your interior and your offensive line, that's a big blow for their run game. This offensive line isn't what it was last year when it arguably was a top 10 unit, which is going to be huge. I'm a little worried too, because even though that Leftwich was the offensive coordinator and calling plays, it was all Arians concepts.
Yeah.
Now Leftwich is there, and it's a completely different world where you're calling plays, not having someone veto you when you call a wrong play, and also adding play designs and play twists when you get deeper into the season. So I think that's going to hurt the Bucs a lot. Then we look at the defensive end. You lose Stu, but you added my boy Akeem Hicks. For those who don't know, Akeem Hicks, definitely one of the most underrated defensive linemen in the game. Very versatile, but if he cannot stay healthy, that is a big deterrent on the run game, stopping the run game. They're one of the better teams stopping the run last season. Then you look, they lose Pierre-Paul for a team that was second in the league in blitzing. That's a huge blow. So I'm kind of low on this defense. And the Saints have given the blueprint and how to beat the Bucs. So you know what? I'm looking at their schedule. Let's just look at their schedule. At Dallas, at New Orleans, Green Bay, Kansas City. They could be 1-3, 0-4, 2-2.
Yeah, that's not an easy start to the season at all. And then, like, they have the fourth hardest schedule in the NFL this year. So it's not like they have, they got a pretty hard schedule throughout the whole season. So it doesn't get much easier. I think they got like one or two little couple weeks here where it might be easy, but schedule's pretty hard throughout.
All right. So a lot of stuff in the comments about Fournette showing up 30 pounds.
I saw some stuff about that. Yeah.
Food in his hometown in New Orleans is delicious. I'm going to say this. I just got back from a bachelor party in New Orleans. I can totally co-sign on that. Food is freaking phenomenal. But I mean, it is kind of a little bit of an issue if he's out of shape. They really don't have anybody in that backfield. And if you're not getting that push in the interior line, that definitely hurts it. And like we said, tough 4-game stretch. Then they have Atlanta, Pitt, and Carolina. That's doable. But then you play Baltimore and the Rams back to back, and you're at Baltimore in a short week with an older team. That's a tough turnaround.
Thursday night game. Yep.
You got Cleveland. God only knows what's going to be happening with Watson. But if Hicks is hurt, that's going to be hard because they like to run the ball. You play the Saints. Saints have the blueprint. You have to travel cross country. You play the 49ers, Bengals back to back. This is a tough schedule with them being older. Their issues on the offensive line and defense. I'm on the under 11.5 here.
Yeah, I think so too. The only thing that scares me just a little bit, last 12 seasons, Tom Brady, with his against the over-under on his win total for the season, he's 10-0-2. So he's never gone under his win total of the past 12 seasons. He's pushed twice and gone over 10 times. So that's the only thing that scares me just a little bit. But like football is obviously more than just a one-man team. Tom Brady is obviously a huge part of the Buccaneers, but there's a lot of questions. And to get 12 wins, that's a lot of wins. And I just don't know if this team is going to be able to do it this year with all the questions that they got right now.
I will say this, the Pythagorean win total last year was 11.6. That's almost underachieving it by 2. Teams that do that tend to go back to the norm and go under. So that's definitely in it. So just to review, my 2 bets for the NFC South are Tampa Bay Buccaneers under 11.5 and the Saints to make the playoffs at plus 130. Shane, what are your bets?
I have Saints to make the playoffs. I got them at plus 115. I got Saints to win 10 plus games, plus 125. I haven't put it in yet, but I might put a very small flyer on the Saints to win the conference at plus 1,600. And then I'll probably be doing under on Bucks wins, 11.5, and probably going over on the Saints 8.5 wins. Or I may just stick with the Saints to win 10 plus games for a little extra value on that.
Yeah, I definitely like that too. Shane, thanks for coming on. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at pirate_bets420, just like underneath there. Also, you can look me up as a Bad Beat Pirate. That's my handle or whatever, or username. That's pretty much look for me on Twitter. I'm doing some esports right now. Not doing a ton of betting until football gets back in business, but doing a little bit of esports here and there and just kind of posting some random stuff here and there. But looking forward to football starting to get back and get some studying done, getting ready for the season to kick off, and we'll be going back full steam once football kicks off.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll be back next week. My boy Brandon will be on. We'll be previewing the AFC East. Until next week, Shane, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Follow. Until next week.
All right.